So in this video we're going to see how to visualize some data with some software called Tableau Public. This visualization is of storms in the North Atlantic, many of them hurricanes, over the past couple of decades. There are two views of the data. One gives the storm tracks for any year. When you roll over the storm track, you get some information about it at that point in time. And at the bottom we have the maximum wind speeds over the time in that year for the same storms. As I said, each view is a year, so we can click back and go and look at 2010, say, instead of 2011. So before we import the data into Tableau Public, let's just look at it. It's in an Excel spreadsheet. So we have various information about the storm. We have their name. We have their number in the year. We also have a column year / number. That's important because it gives a unique identifier for each storm. The names don't do that because names are recycled over the years. Then there is the position of the storms and latitude and longitude. That will be important for mapping. We have the wind speed, which we're going to graph and actually use on the map as well. Then over to the left here we have some date information. The original data had year, month, day and time in hours, and you'll see the information on the storm is tracked every 6 hours. I've made a couple more columns here. I've just put that into a single date time column, which we're going to use. And then I've also transposed all of those dates and times as if they were all in 2011. Now this is a little bit of a trick to allow me to display the data in the way I want, because basically I want all of the storms, their wind speeds, graphed onto a single year. Then I'm going to filter, so we look at 1 year at a time. So we have to trick the software basically into thinking they're all in the same year, even though they're not. I'm just going to stroll down the down the spreadsheet so you can see all of it. Get to the end, you'll see there's nearly 9,500 entries. Obviously there's a rather fewer storms because each one is tracked over time, so we have a number of entries for each storm. So now we've opened up Tableau Public, we're going to connect to the data. I could just do this by clicking on Open Data, but I'm going to show you how to do it from the menu at the top, because we won't always be in that welcome screen with that button there. So you go Data, Connect to Data, you get various options of data type, as is in a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Here it is, open it. Yes, we want the worksheet with storm tracks, so OK. It takes a little while to prepare the data, but once it's imported, it looks like this. Now Tableau organizes data into what it calls dimensions and measures. Measures are basically just numerical data. So here we have our latitude, longitude, and anything that's a number, basically. Dimensions are what's known as categorical data, so they tend to be text, labels, and so on. And Tableau also puts date and time information under the dimensions. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make our map. Not surprisingly, we're going to start with the latitude and longitude. And everything we do in Tableau involves taking these dimensions or measures and dropping them into these areas here, which are known as shelves. And most visualizations start with putting something into the columns and something into the rows. So we're going to put latitude into rows, and we're going to put longitude into columns. Now this may look very strange. We have a single dot for all of that data well, against a blue background, which turns out to be the Atlantic Ocean. Now, why has that happened? Well, it's to do with a default behavior of Tableau. Often, when you're analyzing data, you want to aggregate it in some way. You want to sum all the values up or take an average. And it's actually taken an average here. You can see it's been changed into the average longitude and the average latitude for the storms. Well, you know, they originate in the Atlantic, so we just get the single point out there. That is not what we want. So we need to tell Tableau not to aggregate. That's done under analysis here. You see aggregate measures is checked. So I'm going to uncheck it. And when I do, it redraws. Now we have a series of dots for all of the storms, and they're all over the North Atlantic and southern United States and Caribbean and so on. Now we want to map tracks, not points, so I need to make some changes. I'm going to go over here to the mark shelf. You'll see the automatic is for points. Well, let's just change that to line. Now for the time being, this is just joined all the points up with a line from left to right. That isn't what we want, but we will fix it later. But before that, I'm going to color the storms so that in each view the storms will have a different color. I do that by taking year number, that's the unique identifier for each storm, and dropping it into the color shelf. There's a warning message, we don't need to worry about it, just click add all members, and now everything is colored up. Alright, so now let's fix this issue with the lines and make the lines correct. What we need to do is define the path, and the path is basically defined by the time because they're being tracked over time. So I need to take date and time and drop it into the path shelf. Now it's still not quite right, and it's not quite right because of another default aggregation by year. We don't want them just the date and time defined by year. We need the exact date. And when I do that, now you'll see we have a proper track for each storm. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing here before we start working on filtering the data. I'm going to take wind speed. I'm going to drop that into size, and what that has done, you will see now we have the tracks getting wider when the wind speeds are stronger, as in the visualization you saw earlier. Now notice that all the wind speeds have a single decimal point with 0. That's a spurious level of accuracy. The wind speeds are actually only measured to the nearest 5 kilometers an hour. So I'm going to fix that. Go to wind speed here in the measures, right click. You get field properties, number format. Select number custom, don't have any decimal places, and OK. And now we see we've removed those spurious decimal places. So now I can move on to doing my filter. Not surprisingly, this involves the filters shelf. So I'm going to take date time because we're going to filter by year and drop it into the filters shelf. Now it asks me how I want to filter on date time, and we want to do it by years. Go to next, select all here, click OK, and the year of date and time is now in the filters shelf. Now it looks as if nothing much has happened, but that's because we haven't added the filter. So go to here, now notice that all the wind speeds have a single decimal place with a 0. That's a spurious level of accuracy because actually the wind speeds are only measured to the nearest 5 kilometers an hour. So I'm going to fix that. Go to wind speed here, right click, field properties and number format. Select number custom and get rid of those decimal places. OK, and that's now fixed. So I can start applying my filters. Not surprisingly, this involves the filters shelf. So we want to filter by year, so we take date time and drop it into the filter shelf. It asks me, how do you want to filter on date time? Well, by years. So select next, select all of those, and click OK. So first it looks like nothing's happened, but I actually have to show the filter. So just click on this, go Show Quick Filter, and now you see we have this panel has appeared over to the right with all of the years as check marks. Now that isn't really how we want this filter to look. You can have filters by checking and unchecking the years individually. That isn't what we want. We actually want a slider, but if we click up to the right here, we have the option to change the filter to a slider. There it is now, showing just 1990. That's good. You'll notice there's one thing here. We still have the all view, this sort of multicolored spaghetti. I don't really want that, so I'm going to get rid of it. Again, right click, customize, and uncheck the show all. Now when I move forward and move back, we don't have that view. And then I'm just going to drag it over to 2011, so that's the thing that comes up in the initial view. Now you can see when I roll over the storm tracks, the tooltips are pretty messy at the moment. So the next thing I'm going to do is just tidy that up. We do that under Worksheet, Tooltip, and we get this view. Now you can see I'm going to want to put in the name of the storm, the date and time, and the wind speed. We don't actually have the name of the storm, so to get that in the view, I'm going to have to take name and just pop it down here into level of detail. It doesn't change the visualization at all, but when I go back to the tooltip, now I have name there. So I don't want year number, I don't want latitude and longitude. That can all be deleted. And then I can just reorganize this a little bit. Let's take name. I'm going to copy that. Put it at the top, paste it in, can take it out there, and now if I OK that, we have a rather more informative tooltip. The last thing I'm going to do is just add an annotation so we get the year appearing in the view, so we know very clearly what we're looking at. I'm going to go over Greenland here, right click, I get an option to annotate area. Then I could just type in the year of date, date, time. Format that a little bit. Let's make it larger. I'll make it grey and bold. Click on that. And now we have that year appearing over Greenland. A few more things I want to do. Get rid of this box. So if I select that, right click and format, I can take away the border, and there we go. And all that remains to do with the map is just rename the sheet so I know what it is, map. And we are done.